let us go ahead and get started. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Sarah Sullivan, and welcome to the University Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, our Triple U congregation. So I welcome you to go ahead and silence anything that might ding or buzz or distract you from this time that we have together this morning. Later on, we'll be doing a chalice lighting, so if you want to grab your chalice, please do so now. All right, committee moments. This is a time where we have our committee chairs talk about the upcoming events or things that they need to know about. And so I'll be doing that. Any committee chair that wants to do that, please raise your hand. And Marianne, I see your hand up first, so go ahead.
Recording in progress.
Thanks, Sarah. Marianne Feldheim, Social Action Committee. Sarah, several things. First of all, Share the Plate this month in June will be Pathlight Home, which offers housing first to the homeless. Next Sunday is our Faith in Action Sunday, and we'll have a speaker from Pathlight Home who will be talking about their mission, their projects, and the many things that they've been doing. We also will be visiting Pathlight Home tomorrow. Several members of the SAC committee will be there, and we're specifically going to find boots on the ground type of volunteer projects for all of us to be using. So we hope that next Sunday we'll be able to share at least one or two of our boots on the ground projects with Pathlight Home. Again, this is all following our year of focusing on housing insecurity and how we can address it. So thank you.
Good. Thank you, Marianne. John Mowbray.
Thanks, Sarah. Good morning, everybody. On behalf of Facilities and Grounds, I have two announcements. One is that the next workday will be the 19th of this month, so the third Saturday, and that's from between 9 o'clock till 12. So if you can come out, lend a hand inside or outside, we'd love to have you for as much time as you can spare. The other announcement I wanted to make is regarding potentially painting the inside of the church. I sent an email earlier today to folks that were on an email chain that I sent last week regarding volunteering for painting. And so a lot of the details are in that email. But bottom line is we're probably going to scale back the project. Instead of painting the whole inside of the main building, we're going to focus from a volunteer perspective on the library and the hallway. And assuming the board approves, we'll move forward with hiring Tingles to do the rest of the painting. I just think it's going to be more manageable from, based on the man and woman power that, committed and, the time constraints for everybody that's involved. So again, I sent an email this morning with a little bit more detail around that. And I'll certainly be keeping everybody posted. But same dates kind of apply, where on the 13th, if you can spare some time to help prep the hallway and the library. And then on the 20th, we'll look to do the painting. Okay, so thank you very much.
John, are you still accepting volunteers to help with painting?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Anybody who has time and is willing, please contact John. Okay. Other people that have an announcement? Kelly, go ahead.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm here on behalf of the RTF, the Reopening Task Force Committee, just to remind those who are on the committee and perhaps those who might be interested in joining the committee that we have our first Reignite RTF meeting today at the church at 12:30 to 2. The goal here is to really celebrate the wonderful work that we've accomplished, but yet kind of review where we are right now with our desire to reopen with a hybrid model. In addition to evaluate how we can move forward, safely. And so, yeah, we're excited to be meeting and to come up with another plan. 30 Pizza, we'll be there.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Kelly. All right, other announcements? Martha, did you want to talk about the vote?
And did Kelly mention there'll be a Zoom option at the RTF? Are you going to do that this afternoon?
Yes, I did. No, I didn't.
Or is-
Didn't mention that, but we did put it in the email. So for those, yeah, so for those people who were on the committee, we sent an email out with a Zoom link. I think we know who those are. It's only going to be a few people.
Yeah, it's more of a test today, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, I am here on behalf of the board as the current president. And as you know, the board has been in a period of discernment and reflection and information gathering. And we presented our recommendations to you and offered a lot of opportunities for comment and discussion on whether or not this is the right time for Triple U to move forward with hiring a part-time contract minister. So this afternoon, watch for an email from me as president, most likely. It will go out to all members. Couples will receive individual emails if we had both of them on file. And voting will take place. We're going to take an actual congregational vote on an official congregational vote on whether we should move forward. So there's only two questions. Are we ready to move forward? And if needed, will you serve on a search committee? Are you interested in serving on a search committee? Very straightforward. And voting will take place from today through the 21st, which is a little over 2 weeks, almost 15 days. I can do the math. And this is, we want you to consider this like a special electronic meeting notice. It's technically, we have 15 days. You can vote on the last day. It'll count just as much as if you vote today. And if you do not receive the email, or if you wish to have a paper form mailed, we have a short list of people we know want paper forms, and you can put that in the chat. Hopefully Sarah will be able to see that because I'm on my iPad today, but we want everybody to vote. We'll be reaching out to you if we don't hear from you to make sure that you want to vote, not to force you to vote. So that's it. Are we ready to move forward with hiring a contract minister?
Super.
So I hope you all will participate and let us know where you are.
All right.
And
Thank
any
you, Martha.
questions, just email me at president@. Okay.
All right. Yeah, that email will go out. It has a link to the place where you go and vote. All right. Any other committee moments before we start into our service? Oh, David McElroy?
Hi, just wanted to say that the men's support group is tomorrow night. I put out to the group whether they'd like to meet live by outside. I've only heard back from 2 people, so we're keeping it Zoom unless I hear today that you guys would like to meet outside. But 7 o'clock tomorrow night, and then if you can get back to me today and let me know whether you'd like to meet live or on Zoom. And I have 1 Zoom and 1 not, so. So just let me know, thanks.
Super. All right. Thank you, David. All right. Thank you, everybody. Opening words today. I'm going to introduce our speaker today, who's going to be doing the opening words. So our speaker today, Matt Myer. Matt's a lifelong UU with a long background as both a musician and a worship leader for UU congregations. He lives in Boston, but he travels all over the US presenting to congregations, bringing the good news of Unitarian Universalism. He serves as the Director of Operations for Sanctuary Boston, which is a contemporary UU worship community with, as he says, rockin' music and engaging worship. Matt's also the founding organizer of UU Song Leaders Convergence, which is a gathering of UUs who love community singing to share skills, best practices, and of course, songs in order to build a more musical movement together. So if you will join me, we will welcome Matt for opening words.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Our opening words this morning are from Mickey Scott Bay Jones in her invitation to brave space. She says, "Together we will create brave space because there is no such thing as safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and more love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side." And our opening hymn this morning comes from Annie Zylstra. It was written when she was inspired by the words of Martin Prechtel, who spoke of what it was like to have survived an earthquake in Guatemala. Prechtel spoke of what it was like to have the ground beneath his feet, that which had always been so permanent and so solid, suddenly rise up in motion. And he said that the myth of believing in solid ground is a myth believed by those that live on the earth, rather than living as a part of the earth. I know for the last year now, I have been constantly searching for some sense of grounding, even as it feels like the ground beneath my feet is constantly shifting. If that's been true for you as well, I invite you into the spirit of this song, to be in motion with the earth and to be in movement together. For all of our music this morning, I invite you, even though you will be muted, to continue to sing along at home. Just because we can't hear each other doesn't mean we can't sing together, at least in some way. It doesn't mean we can't breathe together in rhythm. So this song has a low part and then a high part that's call and response. Sing along with whatever you like, or go ahead and make up your own. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. All moves on in perfect motion. All is change and ever rolling ocean. All moves on in do that low part 2 more times. Perfect motion, all is change and ever rolling ocean. All moves on in perfect motion. All is change and ever rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground, till I saw the earth in motion, the wind of steady change, and the ever rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground, till I saw the earth in motion, in the wind of steady change, and the earth solid ground, till I saw the earth in motion, the wind, so steady change, and the ever rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground till I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion.
Thank you, Matt. That was great. Oh, I can't wait for the rest of the service now. Okay. We're going to light our chalice. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. I just want to take a moment to welcome any visitors who are joining us for the first time today. We are a caring and dynamic group of people. We have a different speaker every Sunday. We have a different topic every Sunday. So I encourage you to come back multiple times, get to know us a little better, and let us get to know you. All right, joys and concerns. This is a time where we share the important events in our lives. Sharing joys and sharing sorrows, this is the way that we build our community. So if you wish to share either a joy or a concern, moment, please, to meditate on all of these joys and these concerns which people shared with us, but also the joys and concerns that people may hold in their hearts but didn't speak out today.
Recording in progress.
Good. Thank you very much. All right. Matt is going to do our time for all ages today. So Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you.
I'd love to share with you all this story called Desmond Gets Free, a story that I wrote and just published as a children's book a couple months ago with the UU Association. Now, Desmond the mouse lived in the most beautiful meadow in all the land. Every morning, Desmond would wake with the sunrise and spend the day playing in that meadow. And every night he would go to sleep under the beautiful starry sky in the middle of the meadow. One night, though, Desmond awoke to find that it was still dark out. He tried to roll over, get more comfortable, go back to sleep, but something wasn't right. He was hard to move, and while his tail was throbbing with pain. Reaching behind him, he felt that there was some sort of boulder seemed to have landed in the middle of the meadow just on his tail, and he was stuck. He tried tugging on his tail to get free, and he tried pushing on this big boulder, but it didn't move. He tried pushing and tugging and tugging and pushing, but it was no use. Just when he was starting to get real worried, he saw a giraffe passing by through the grasses. Good news, he thought. He called out, "Oh, giraffe, it seems that some kind of boulder has landed on my tail just in the middle of this meadow. If you could use your strong legs to push it a few inches in the other direction, I could go free." Well, the giraffe laughed at Desmond the way giraffes do. "You silly mouse," it said. "That's no boulder that's fallen on your tail in the meadow. That is an elephant that's fallen asleep on your tail in the middle of the meadow." "Well, good news," said Desmond. "Well, if you could just gently wake him up and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction, I could get free." "I don't know about that," said the giraffe. "I mean, you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times like this." "Well," said Desmond, "I do not appreciate your neutrality." The giraffe wandered off again, leaving Desmond alone. He tried shouting as loud as he could to wake the huge animal, but his little mouse voice was just too far from those giant elephant ears on the way other end of that giant elephant body. He tried pushing on the elephant to get free, and he tried tugging on his tail, and he tried shouting and tugging and pushing and pushing and tugging and shouting all over again until he was out of breath. But it was no use. He was stuck. When he had just about given up, he saw a gazelle pass by. Good news, he thought. "Oh, gazelle," he called out, "it seems that this elephant has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of the meadow. If you could gently wake him up and just ask him to roll over a few inches in the other direction, I could go free." "I don't know about that," said the gazelle. "You know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times like this." The gazelle wandered off, and Desmond said, almost to himself this time, "I do not appreciate your neutrality." One final time, Desmond tried shouting with all of his voice. He tried pushing with all of his strength and tugging with all of his might, and shouting and pushing and tugging and pushing and shouting. And when he had just about given up for the last time, he saw another animal pass by through the grass. But this time it was another mouse. He called out, and the mouse ran over and introduced himself. "My name is Nelson. What seems to be the problem?" No sooner had Desmond explained the situation than Nelson ran all the way to the other side of that giant elephant body, and he shouted up to those giant elephant ears, "Excuse me! It seems you've fallen asleep just on my friend's tail in the middle of the meadow. If you could roll over just a few inches in the other direction, he could go free." But those elephant ears were still too far away from Nelson's little mouse voice way down on the ground. The elephant heard Nelson's shouting, but it was just a little too comfortable, and his voice was just a little too quiet. The elephant didn't budge. So Nelson ran back to Desmond and he said, "I think I might have an idea. Stay right here." And he ran off into the grasses, leaving a confused look on Desmond's face. And just when Desmond was starting to get worried again, he saw Nelson emerge back through the grass. But this time, he wasn't alone. He had found 3 mouse friends, and each of them had found another 3 mouse friends. The whole group of them ran over to the other side of that giant elephant body, and one mouse climbed up on the shoulders of another, and another mouse climbed up on their shoulders, till one by one, they had a whole mouse ladder all the way up the back of that giant elephant head. So at last, Nelson climbed up slowly and gently the shoulders of his friends one by one until he stood right at the opening of that giant elephant ear, and he shouted with all of his strength, "Excuse me! It seems you've fallen asleep on my friend's tail in the middle of the meadow. Roll over just a few inches so he can get free." This time his voice was too loud to ignore, too close to ignore, and the elephant, with a low groan, just rolled over a few inches in the other direction. Nelson and the other mice climbed back on down to the ground, and they met up with Desmond, and the whole group of them spent the rest of that day playing together in the beautiful meadow. Archbishop Desmond Tutu once said, "If you are neutral in a situation of injustice, you have already taken sides with the powerful and with the oppressor." He has said, if an elephant is standing on the tail of a mouse, the mouse will never appreciate your neutrality. As Unitarian Universalists, we have envisioned in our hearts and we've articulated in our principles the goal of justice and equity and compassion in our relationships and in our world. And so that means we work together to make that world real. We work together to take sides for justice, to take sides for equity and compassion. And it means that we work together to side with love. May it be so, and may we make it so.
May it be so. That is a wonderful story. And Matt has been kind enough to give me the link for where you can go and get a copy of it if you want to. And I'm going to paste that in the chat right now. Okay. Our Pathlight to Home is the group that we will be supporting with our Share the Plate this month, as Marianne told us. So please, if you would like to donate, you can use the donate button on the UUU website. You can write a check. There's lots of different ways to do it. And Matt will be going ahead and providing music for us.
Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. Listen, my people, we bring the power. La libertad es la única bandera. Liberty is the only flag. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad eagle. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can ever be illegal. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza, la libertad es la única bandera. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza, la libertad es la única bandera. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can ever be illegal. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can ever be illegal. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza, la libertad es la única bandera. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza, la libertad es la única bandera. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can ever be illegal. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. Human being can never be illegal. No human being can never be illegal. No human being can ever be illegal. No human being can ever be illegal.
Thank you, Matt.
I think we have one more song before the sermon, if that's all right.
Of course, we'd love to hear it.
Less talking and more music.
That's why we all came today.
This next song by Muse has, I think, become an anthem for justice in the last couple of years, and particularly as we try and find a way forward through what a difficult year this has been. This song says, "We shall be known by the company we keep." And I think particularly in Unitarian Universalism, a covenantal religion, a religion that values relationship above all text even, that values relationship as a way of finding our way forward in community. I think this is a powerful message. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around and tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves back to the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around and tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves back to the well. It is time now, and what a time to known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves back to the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around attendees high. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves back to the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
All right. I love that song. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you. It's good to see some of you singing along at home. Well, I, perhaps like some of you, start most days with a to-do list. Usually, between you and me at least, it is an overly ambitious to-do list. And at the end of the day, I have rarely crossed everything off of it. And one of the things in particular that is always on the list and almost always goes unchecked is making time for writing. It's not that this isn't important to me. I'm so dedicated to writing that every day I put it on the list. And I'm so dedicated that every day I sit down and I collect quotes and story ideas and writing prompts so that when I do write, I'll have lots of inspiration for it. I'm so dedicated that every day I work on other things besides writing and I finish other pressing commitments so that I'll eventually have lots of time to write. I'm so dedicated that certainly one of these days I will do some writing. One of my favorite authors, Anne Lamott, talks about this. She talks about how hard it is to just sit down every day and put your butt in the chair and write, to do the thing that perhaps you most want to do even. She says, the discouraging voices will hound you. This is all piffle, they will say. And they might even be right. What you are doing may just be practice. But practice is how you're going to get better. Some of the best writing advice I ever got was from a teacher who told me, take a few minutes for now and don't write. But just, well, write what you would write if you were going to write. I sometimes feel like in all the years since I got that advice, I haven't written anything since. But I have written a lot about what I would write if I did write. You might call this the practice of practicing, learning how to practice. The problem is that the finished product we might imagine for ourselves can feel so far from where we're starting. Too often, the person we would like ourselves to someday become can feel impossibly far from the person we see in the mirror each morning. The world as we would like it to be can feel impossibly far from what we read in the headlines each day. The demons of perfectionism stand in the way of writing just as they stand in the way of creative risk-taking in general. And this is unfortunate because we know that creating a life for yourself that doesn't yet exist requires some creative risk-taking. Showing up as your best self, particularly in uncertain and anxious times like these, just showing up as your best self every day requires setting aside those discouraging voices that hound us. And too often, just imagining a world of true justice and equity and compassion means setting aside the voices that tell you your efforts are just piffle. When the demons of perfectionism show up like this, I try to practice the practicing of showing up for myself and for others. Musicians know something about practicing. One of the requirements for all students at Berklee College of Music, where I attended years ago here in Boston, is 4 semesters of ear training. Ear training is learning to sight sing music just by reading the notes on the page and learning to write down the notes just by listening to a song. And when I began school, I certainly knew that there were some people out there somewhere who were capable of this kind of magic, but it seemed like some kind of Harry Potter nonsense to me. Like, you may as well ask me to walk into the classroom and transform my desk into a toad using a conductor's baton. It seemed impossible. On that first day of ear training, I remember there was a sort of nervous silence among most of us students. Silence except for one student who was quite vocal in his nervousness. There was one student in my class who, on the very first day, in the very first few minutes, interrupted our teacher's introductions to say that he was worried the class was going to be too advanced for him. He wanted to make it clear that he knew not a single thing about ear training. Our teacher kindly paused his introductions to respond. He explained that we'd all taken entrance exams and had all surely been placed in the appropriate class. The teacher tried to continue, but was interrupted again. Well, the man said, but is this like the very lowest class? Because I need to be in the very lowest class. Now, at this point, you could tell the teacher looked a little embarrassed. He looked around the room kind of sheepish, not really wanting to answer that, yes, we were a class of the very lowest, most basic students in the school. Well, he said, it is ear training 101, so I guess it is the lowest. He thought about it for a minute and said, I guess there is a class for people that have previously failed the 101, but you all are just about the lowest. Now, some of the other students at this point giggled a little bit at this man's anxieties, but I was kind of glad to hear that it felt like someone was questioning this absurd notion that sight singing even could be taught. I don't know what happened next for that other student, but I know that he never came back to our class. Not because anything we did on that first day was in fact too hard for him, I'm sure of that. But I think he lacked a belief that improvement was even possible. I kept going, thinking that if generations of students have done this before me, it must be possible somehow, even if I personally can't see the way forward. And I made a commitment to at least practice the material, although not as much as I would have liked. I've always remembered this other student, though, the student who gave up before he started. It's not just that he didn't try to become a great master at ear training. It's that he didn't even try the practicing of it, which always struck me as the real loss. When the discouraging voices hound me, I sometimes think of him, and I think of those words from Anne Lamott, and I remind myself that maybe for now the work I'm doing is just practice. But practice is how I'm going to get better. The pandemic arrived nearly a year ago, and it has been a difficult year to be sure. It's been a year of constant adaptation, a year of the ground shifting constantly beneath our feet. I imagine that the next year, much like the past year, will be a time of learning and relearning new ways of being together all over again, of organizing our calendars and our days differently all over again, of organizing our people differently all over again. This is a time of adaptation, which means that it is also a time, though, of imagination. A time, as we have seen this year, calling on those in power, which in some ways is all of us, to learn some new skills and learn to play some new roles in our community. And I think particularly for white folks, this has been a time to practice some new skills and learn some new roles. A time for listening in deeper ways we haven't always done so well before. A time for having some hard conversations that we just haven't yet practiced enough. Fellow white folks, as we reimagine a new society, I invite you to listen to the voices that fight to be heard elsewhere and practice amplifying those voices by repeating them in calls to your representatives and to your colleagues and to your family. If you've inherited wealth that was accumulated in a time of systematic racial segregation, which is true of all wealth in this country, now is the time to practice giving it away. If your muscle memory has been to call the police when something goes wrong, now is a good time to practice something different. I know I won't all of a sudden do all of these things, but I will practice the doing of them. Because musicians know as well as anyone that muscle memory is very real. We know that consistent practicing changes the very structure of our brains, rewiring our circuitry, forging new connections and new possibilities. No one is born a musician. Musicians are just the ones that learned how to practice. Even songbirds need elder birds to teach them their melodies. They can't do it alone. Practice doesn't make music perfect, but it makes music possible. So let us practice the practicing together. Let's practice showing up for ourselves and showing up for others to build that new world of justice and equity and compassion. We know practice won't make the world perfect, but practice makes a better world possible. Someday I want to be a true expert in justice and compassion. Someday I want to be well practiced at creating that brave space that Mickey Scott Bay Jones talked about. Someday I want to be masterful at amplifying the voices that fight to be heard elsewhere, and I want to be skillful at speaking more truth and more love. Someday I want to be part of transforming our so-called justice system that has hurt so many so deeply. I want to be part of shifting an education system that fast-tracks some to college and others to prison. I want to be part of transforming an energy sector that's been working overtime to overheat our planet. These are daunting tasks. On most days, learning to transcribe a symphony seems more manageable than any one of them. But that's okay, because for now, I don't have to do all of those things. I just need to practice doing what I would do if I were doing them. So, dear ones, don't promise to be your best self today. Just practice being the person you would be if you were practicing being your best self. Don't try to rebuild a new world in the image of love this week. Just practice doing what you would do if you had committed to such things. You have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We all have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. And so let us start together. Let us grow together. And let us practice together. May it be so.
Thank you, Matt. I'm really struck by that image. We don't have to do it. We just have to practice what we would do if we were going to do it. And that feels so much more doable. So thank you for that message today. Right. You will join me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go ahead, Matt. Thank you.
Beloveds, you don't have to be your best self today. You just have to practice doing what you would do if you were your best self. Don't try to rebuild a new world in the image of love this week. Just practice doing what you would do if you had committed to such beautiful things. Let us start together. Let us grow together. And let us practice together. Go in peace and go and be blessed as you are a blessing to others. Our closing song is written by Sarah Lynch Thomason, a climate justice activist in Appalachia. I love that this song, like I think the best music, and perhaps like the best faith communities, calls us not to turn away from difficult things, calls us not to ignore the crises of our time, but to face them directly, to name them honestly, and to move forward to address them together. Please sing along at home as you get a sense of the song. It goes like this. There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know. There are more waters rising, they will find their way to me. There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know. Let's do that verse again now that you've got how it goes. Here we go. There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know. There are more waters rising, they will find their way to me. There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know. There are more fires burning. There are more fires burning, this I know, this I know. There are more fires burning, this I know. There are more fires burning, they will find their way to me. There are more fires burning, this I know, this I know. There are more fires burning, this I know. More mountains falling. There are more mountains falling, this I know, this I know. There are more mountains falling, this I know. There are more mountains falling, they will find their way to me. There are more mountains falling, this I know, this I know. There are more mountains falling, this I know. I will wade through the water, this I know. I will wade through the waters when they find their way to me. I will wade through the water, this I know, this I know. I will wade through the waters, this I know. I will wade through the waters when they find their way to me. I will wade through the waters, this I know, this I know. I will wade through the waters, this I know. I will walk through the fire. I will walk through the fire, this I know, this I know. I will walk through the fire, this I know. I will walk through the fires when they find their way to me. I will walk through the fires, this I know, this I know. I will walk through the fires, this I know. I will rebuild the mountain. I will rebuild the mountains, this I know, this I know. I will rebuild the mountains, this I know. I will rebuild the mountains when they find their way to me. I will rebuild the mountains, this I know, this I know. I will rebuild the mountains, this I know. There are more waters rising. There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know. There are more waters rising, they will find their way to me. There are more Waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know.
Thank you, Matt. Everyone, please join me. Thank you for such a wonderful service and a wonderful message. We're so grateful to you for joining us today. I'm going to put in the chat here a link for all of you who have enjoyed Matt's service enough that you would like to go and get more details. His website is Rhythm Revelations, and I put it in the chat, so go ahead and find that. All right, that is the end of today's formal part of the service, but I'm going to invite you to unmute, and Matt said that he would stick around for comments, questions, accolades.